The total amount of plastic ever amounts to about 9.15 billion tons, and half of that has been produced in just the last 13 years. Tune into a cleaner future with Pollution Evolution and Saucin Solutions.
We are your hosts,
Faith
and Kimberly. Welcome to Honey, I Shrunk the Plastics. Today we will be discussing microplastics. As always, we will start with a bit of the history behind microplastics, talk about some of their uses, their health effects, environmental effects, and ways to reduce your exposure to them.
And before we get started, we have some exciting updates to bring you guys today. But firstly, if you want to follow us along on this journey, you can stream Pollution Evolution every Saturday, 4 p.m. Central Standard Time on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and anywhere else you get your podcasts from. You can also follow our social media for updates at Pollution Evolution Podcast and at Pollution Evolution on TikTok. But this week, we have something we've been kind of keeping from our viewers.
Yeah, we've been keeping the secret for almost a year now.
Yeah, we've been working on something that has a lot to do with pollution evolution and that we feel really passionate about, and we're finally excited to share that today.
So the big news is we are a business. So as you said, welcome with Pollution Evolution and Saucin Solutions. So we are also Saucin Solutions.
Yes, that's Atkinson and
Sauceda put together.
Mm-hmm. And that's our environmental software company. We're going to be hitting the market very soon in August, so please follow us on Pollution Evolution Podcast for more updates, and we will be bringing our social media and websites to the public very, very soon.
Yeah, so stay tuned for that. So very exciting stuff. We're glad to have you here and hope you stick around for that.
Yeah. And another exciting thing that we have coming up that kind of has to do with Pollution Evolution and Saucin Solutions is we're holding a Regency era stoplight ball. So what that is it's kind of like a Jane Austen-esque ball or Bridgerton-esque ball if you've seen it. And we're going to have dance cards that are color-coded based on if you're single, in a relationship, or just wanting to go and have fun. And we're going to teach you guys how to do the dances. We're going to get dressed up, have tons of champagne, eat really nice hors d'oeuvres. And we're going to hold a silent auction because we're crowdfunding to actually launch our business and get it off the ground and to put more time and effort into Pollution Evolution. So we're trying to raise money to do those things so we can begin research and do all the things that we talk about here on the podcast and apply the changes we've kind of been talking about.
Yeah, and also we will be linking our GoFundMe for our Saucin Solutions company. Like you said, we are starting basically from our garage.
Yeah, literally. We've been working almost a year with really like no resources besides our minds and our tenacity, and we're really at a point where all of that hard work has brought forth something really beautiful. So we're excited to go on this journey. But for now, let's get into why microplastics are everywhere. A microplastic life cycle starts at the production of plastics. So for those of you who don't know, plastics are actually polymers, which are typically made by extracting materials from petroleum sources. And it always comes back to petroleum, Kim, doesn't it?
It's always fossil fuels in
Yeah,
general.
like it's like in Scooby-Doo when you at the mask.
It's just an oil rig.
We have to make a meme.
We need to.
Absolutely, we're gonna like just wait. Instagram, it's coming. But yeah, petroleum typically is not typically. It is fossil fuel. So when you use petroleum jelly, you're also using a fossil fuel on your body and face. Just something to be mindful of. Yeah. And so some types of common plastics include polystyrene, polyethylene terephthalate, polypropylene, and polyamide.
So plastics, as most of you know, are used in almost every everyday item. Think about it. What do you have around you currently that is not plastic? Whether you're in your car, whether you're at your house, whether you're in your office. I mean, 99% of things have plastic in them. Almost.
Yeah. Or like you have to be very intentional about getting non-plastic items, because if you're not, more than likely you'll wind up taking it home and at least something.
Exactly. So when these plastics that we are using get thrown out into the trash, they go to the landfill. They degrade there, quote unquote. Plastics degrading does not mean that they are going to break down into something compostable or natural or good for the earth.
Yeah, like cardboard, for instance. That breaks down to something good for the earth.
Yeah, but plastics, on the other hand, turn into microplastics. So microplastics is literally just tinier pieces of plastic.
I think it's 5 microns and smaller, and that's the size of a human cell.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah.
They take anywhere from 20 to 500 years to degrade. And that's if they degrade. So over time, they are always going to exist in the environment in some capacity, whether it turns into a nanoplastic or it goes even smaller than that. Like, microplastics are everywhere.
Yeah, they are. It's quite literally ridiculous. And I think it's because our plastic use has just continued to increase, because prior to plastics being developed, we used a lot of sustainable material because we simply couldn't afford to not. Things had to be built to last. That's why, like, you know, ACs weren't breaking down and and like your appliances would last much longer, and, you know, things of that nature. Things were just built to last way longer.
Like, you would get your milk in glass cartons
Yeah.
instead of cardboard, or like the film covered cardboard rather.
Yeah. And because of that, like, the total amount of plastic ever amounts to about 9.15 billion tons, and half of that has been produced in just the last 13 years. So our rates of consumption are speeding up exponentially, and I think it's a bigger sign outside of plastic. I think it's like really triggering something deeper in society, because why are we needing to consume so much? Like, what are we escaping from that we have to keep buying, you know?
It's just our consumer driven society. Like, that's what they want you to do, is they want you to buy and buy and buy more. And that's why, like, there's actually like a marketing strategy of colors. Like red and yellow make you hungry. That's on McDonald's.
Yep, exactly. A lot of food places do that. And they also put like the stuff that's more appealing to kids on the lower shelves. And I think there's a lot of tactics in it, and it's almost like psychological too, because I feel like we work a lot.
Yeah.
And a lot of people are in that same boat, and so a lot of things come with ease, so you're going to consume more, because like that's how you get your joy, almost, because you're working a 9 to 5 and then you have to come home and do like your 5 to 9. And then what other joy do you have besides, oh, I bought something and it's going to be waiting for me, you know?
Yeah.
And I think that, like, that's why when we talk about these issues, it's not just like pollution and science. There's a lot of intersections within like socioeconomic things, psychological things, and like societal behaviors really drive a lot of this pollution, because there's a demand for this. So yeah.
So let's talk about, like, past those 13 years ago. What is the history behind microplastics? Well, first, in the 1960s, they found plastic pieces in the stomachs of albatrosses. Do you know what an albatross looks like?
Yeah, it's the bird with the big old beak and like.
Yeah.
That
was cute.
Yeah, they're cuties.
Okay, well, those poor guys had plastic found in them in the 1960s.
Ew.
Yeah. In the 1980s, it was reported by Merrill that plastic litter on beaches of an island in Alaska more than doubled between the years of 1972 and 1974. That's 2 years, and it more than doubled. In this study, he blamed the waste mainly on Soviet and Japanese fishing activities, because fishing activities use a lot of plastics.
But we're not saying that was the direct cause.
Yeah,
We're not fully sure. A lot of plastic travels on currents. It could literally have come from anywhere. Yeah.
So it took a while. There were studies throughout history, but it wasn't until around June of 2008 that the European Parliament issued the Marine Strategy Framework Directive to encourage member countries to protect and safeguard the marine environment. Because our oceans is where they were seeing most of the plastic. That's where, like, on the coastlines it's accumulating.
Yeah, it washes up on these beaches. I have been watching images out of Bali recently. There's been massive cleanup efforts, but more and more plastic gets washed up on the beach every day. And it's just like, even if you're taking away metric tons of it each year, so much of it's coming, and it's largely coming from the West. And it's being carried to a lot of other countries that were not producing nearly the level of plastic waste that we do. And again, back with consumption, like, our consumption might not have the effects here, but it's being felt elsewhere in the world, even if we're not aware of it. And soon it's going to be on our doorstep.
Yeah. And so, like, going back to, like, the U.S.'s part in this is in September of that same year of 2008, there was the first conference held in the United States to assess the situation regarding microplastics and animals. They did a risk assessment of contaminants present and tried to define future strategies moving forward. And then between 2009 through 2011, about 3,000 papers were published on plastic litter because it became so huge.
Yeah.
And it's because we'll post some photos in our YouTube video. Like, we'll roll them through here. But for those of you who don't know, we'll be putting them on our Instagram of the pollution. Typically, the reason that they're concerned about pollution is because it gets stuck on the animals' necks. It gets, like, it suffocates them. It has, like, it kills them.
Yeah, we've all seen the images of, like, the ducks and the animals with the, like, soda can tabs around their necks. I feel like we grew up in, like, the early 2000s. It was a big reduce, reuse, recycle. That was, like, a massive campaign. If you, like, went to school at that time, which is good. Like, I'm glad that we grew up learning about sustainability and, like, how to reduce these things. But a lot of those images, I can't get those out of my head. And it's true because the wildlife is so adversely affected because they aren't producing it, but they have to live with it. And that's why so many times in the ocean you literally see animals adapt to the pollution there.
Like, they'll live, like, in, like, some of these bottles that land in the ocean, right? Like, some of the Coke bottles, if it doesn't have the lid on it, it's just, like, they make it a home. Because they're like, I mean, it's here, it's not going anywhere. So.
And with that, there's so many different uses that actually generate microplastics. They're found in so many different industries, and they're pretty much ubiquitous. They're found in every single biome, in human tissue, everywhere. Like, there's literally not a place on this earth that is not directly impacted by microplastic pollution. So some of the primary uses are microbeads and cosmetics. So a lot of times cosmetics will use microbeads as exfoliants or as, like, an abrasive measure to slough off dead skin, and, like, a number of reasons. But when you're actually done, all those beads are getting washed down the drain. And if, like, a bunch of people are using those products, which are very common, I mean, I used them when I was younger. I
use them too. It's like the ones that, like, have, like, for rough.
Like for, like, acne and stuff. And I feel like they market it to so many. Again, like, this is so deep. It's not just like, oh, there's microplastics. It's like these are being rolled out and marketed to individuals. So that is one use. And then a secondary use are larger plastics degrading into smaller plastics, as Kim mentioned. So every large piece of plastic that has ever been created is still currently on the earth, even if it's in a different form. And so every single time you use a piece of plastic, every single time, like, you get a reusable water bottle, every single time you choose to use glass, every single time you make a more sustainable choice, you are literally saving that piece of plastic from being generated that would have been used in that case. And so that's why being aware of these things is so important, because if you didn't know, how would you, like, be able to educate yourself?
Yeah, and how can you act on it if you have no idea there's an issue to begin with?
Yeah, exactly. And microplastics are also found in synthetic fibers. So any clothing that's made from polyester, rayon, lycra, any material like that, spandex, um, is plastic essentially. So if your clothes aren't like cotton, linen, wool, or any other natural material that is like directly grown from the earth or sheared from an animal, or like from a pupa if it's silk. It is plastic. And when I found that out, I literally went through my closet and I was like, oh my God, there's no way all of this is plastic. And you just don't realize that, like, the clothing that you're wearing is even exposing you to these things and, like, directly in contact with your skin tissue, which is the largest organ in your body. And even our blankets, our textiles, like so many things that we use in a day to day basis are made from plastic, including tires, road markings, our tea bags, wrappers on foods, food containers, utensils.
Yeah, it's in everything. Like we said, like I mean, water bottles. Everybody gets those plastic water bottles
Yeah.
out of convenience.
Mm-hmm. Like seriously, and at the convenience store, they very rarely are gonna have glass bottles or a glass option, and if they do, it's gonna be a lot more expensive. And so, like, plastic became like necessary because people were needing cheaper alternatives, but now it has just become a monster and taken on a life of its own.
And with its taking a life of its own, it's also affecting our lives. So here's a not so fun fact. It has been estimated that humans ingest a credit card worth of plastic each week.
Mm-hmm.
Each week. So you're eating 52 credit cards worth of plastic a year.
And that's just an estimate. And so, and if you're using more of these things, that number could be way higher. Because think about just like, say an average person wakes up, they go to like a convenience store to get their breakfast and like get a bottle of like Coke or something. I don't know what people drink in the morning. And then for lunch, they also get like a takeout meal wrapped in plastic and they use a plastic fork to eat it. And then on the way home from dinner, they stop and they have to go grab another one. Like that's 3 to 4 instances of eating plastic directly all day.
And that's without considering your clothes.
Yeah.
Without considering
the air you're breathing in.
Yeah, or the seat in your car, or like any of that. So microplastics that are micrometer size, like most microplastics, she said 5 microns, they can enter the human body through every single pathway: ingestion, inhalation, dermal. The impacts they have on your body is it can affect your central nervous system. So it ruins your blood-brain barrier. We discussed this when we were talking about carbon black. So if you want to go back to episode 4 and listen to that, shameless plug. But it affects your blood-brain barrier. There's also some studies that show that it could be linked to diabetes, stroke. It blocks your digestive system. It stimulates your mucous membrane, and it injures it. For newborns and infants, they're typically exposed to more microplastics due to their feeding bottles and medical devices. So unfortunately, a lot of feeding bottles for babies now are plastic. Like they have some that are glass, but it's not safe.
That's common, yeah, because if you drop that or the heat, like the way heat's conducted,
it's like you have to be a lot more cautious.
Yeah, exactly. And even if you choose to breastfeed, there's a chance of passing on microplastics through the breast milk. And also, like, as we talked about, I believe in week 6 or 7. We have a lot of episodes, guys. We're really getting up there. Pollutants are also passed through mother's breast milk, so there's really no winning here. Like you like safely feed your baby with plastic, or there's a potential to pass on carbon black, there's a potential to pass on different pollutants. So it's like, as like a birthing person or a mom, like what are you supposed to do? What choices do you really have?
And to know, for microplastics in general, their overall toxicity varies depending on their size, shape, chemical composition, surface charge, hydrophobicity, and microplastic particles, like just their composition in general. So it's going to have different effects for everybody, and that's kind of the very scary thing. Is it's kind of like whenever we were talking to infinity and beyond. That
Yes.
episode.
Oh, that's what I was thinking of. It was to infinity and beyond about that.
Yeah, whenever we were talking about I lost my train of thought. It's okay. Let's continue.
Okay, so now that we've discussed these health effects, let's touch on some of the environmental effects because obviously, if it's infecting the human body, it's also infecting the planet. So, microplastics have been found in every single corner of the universe, including Antarctica, Marianas Trench. In Antarctica, 73 to 3,099 particles per liter of snow were found. Most of the particles, about 95% of them, were smaller than 50 micrometers. Polyamides, polyethylene terephthalate, and polyethylenes were also found at these sites. And so polyamides are used in textiles. Polyethylene terephthalates are used in bottles and packagings, and polyethylene is used in synthetic rubber. And I know rubber was a highly contested topic. We talked about it with carbon black and the ongoing genocide, and it's just sad to see that even like with synthetic options, it's still not like a good alternative.
Yeah.
Some
It's like they're it's almost like we could be so much smarter about the way that we're developing things. Like we
Yeah.
could develop cleaner things. Like people have developed cleaner things, but we aren't pushing our resources towards those things.
Exactly. Like I feel like we continue to funnel money into things because they're quick and easy to produce instead of allowing true innovation. And I'm just like, at what point do we stop and ask ourselves, like, why? Like, is this really like really we've really gotten to the point where we've made like billions of tons of plastics that will never degrade and that it's even found in Antarctica, like a continent that has largely never had human settlement on it. Like, yes, there's research laboratories, but like
There's not very many people there.
yeah, that's not a human settlement. Like,
Yeah.
I don't know. Microplastics also affect marine environments. So, microplastics accumulate plastic within fish and sea life. As we talked about, bioaccumulation occurs when a small amount of a substance accumulates within the tissue of a fish or a piece of aquatic wildlife, in this case, over time. And it begins to build up in them. And then when we eat it, we experience biomagnification. So the amount of microplastic concentration that enters us is much higher. And in a lot of areas where people are dependent on fish, this is really difficult because they're ingesting large amounts of it on a day-to-day basis. It also affects rivers and can contribute to high amounts of plastic pollution within them. And like I said, in areas such as Bali and off the coast of West Africa, you see a lot of clothing and trash pile up. And again, clothing is a form of plastic pollution. So we just have to be really cognizant that as we're producing all of these things, it is traveling down rivers, it is affecting the wildlife that lives there. The ocean currently has trillions of microplastic particles within it. And it will never be able to be removed from the ocean currently because we do not have the necessary innovations and technologies to do that. Yes, we can remove the larger pieces of plastic, but for the particle sizes that are very, very small, removal of them just has not caught up. Like the technology just has not caught up to the level that we're producing.
And I mean, realistically, whenever you think of how deep the ocean is, those tiny, tiny particles are going to settle.
Yeah, they went to the deepest place on Earth.
Exactly. So how do you clean that up?
Yeah, literally. And also, the ocean is our largest sink of carbon dioxide in the world. And there is a whole pump that pulls in all of the CO2 from the atmosphere and stores it in the ocean so it isn't released back out and causing continuous warming effects. But microplastics have the potential to clog this pump. And we have not seen the full ramifications of that yet with global warming and increased CO2 emissions. We have no idea how our so on and so forth sink will actually be working now, because we have an unprecedented amount of plastic pollution.
It's insane.
Yeah. And they also alter microbial communities within these areas, and microbes are everything. Without microbes, like we literally would not be here. Like the great photosynthetic event was literally like facilitated because of them. The great oxidation event was facilitated because of them. So altering those communities and the way they work is just completely detrimental to the delicate balance of our ecology and human life. So soil can also become contaminated due to plastic pollution and improper trash disposal. Also due to some agricultural uses. So oftentimes when the soil becomes contaminated, our food and drink also become contaminated. So as me and Kim have mentioned, our seafood, our food packaging, and our actual drinking water can all be sources of microplastic pollution and exposure. Um, it's just so sad.
Yeah, it's like thinking about it. I have my reusable stainless steel because I'm like
No,
I'm not
emphasis on the stainless steel.
yeah, because I'm not doing microplastics.
No.
But like I think about whenever I was younger, how many times I got that hot Gatorade out of the car.
Not the hot gator, yeah. Nor the hot water bottle.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, and just thinking back, it's like, wow, we are the people who are exposed ourselves to more than the average human.
Yeah. I think about that meme of like your parents full of asbestos, your parents full of lead, or their parents full of lead. It has full of microplastics. I'll have to add it. It's like all the Spider-Mans pointing at each other. And that's how it feels because like our generation is the one that's going to take the brunt of it. Because growing up, like we would have like Lunchables packaged in all plastic, like all of our like microwave meals, the little like Kool-Aid jammers, Capri Suns, all of that. All of it's in plastic, and like we would drink those. I don't know how many of those.
And
like
yogurt comes in
my
plastic.
gosh, yes, so many things.
Yeah.
There's even things stored in plastic like in my fridge right now that because that's just how it comes. You can't get it any other way.
Cream cheese, butter. You're just rethinking everything now, aren't you?
Yeah, I'm gonna be like, maybe we should make that butter from scratch again. And like, I feel like me and Kim have even done a really good job to try to limit our plastic exposure, but it's really impossible. Like, at least in the society that we currently live in, it's impossible. Even if we say like we're never buying another plastic item again, like where's the plastic that was used to build your house? What about your mattress?
What about the grocery bag? You know that they're gonna force on you whenever you go to the store.
No, literally. Get paper bags if you can, but sometimes I literally like have been told no, or like there's no option for it. Like that happens to me more. And I do bring reusable bags, but like if I'm getting a lot of groceries and I only have like a couple, I'm like load them up, but they don't.
Yeah.
And they're like, no, we're gonna have to like I don't know. It's just I don't want to argue with the bag teller, so I just go along with them. Like okay.
So with all of this, let's get back on track. Let's talk about ways to reduce your exposure. We were kind of talking about that already. So try to use glass whenever possible. Try to stay away from plastic. If you get like your spices, for example, you can get those in glass containers. I know that they're a little bit more expensive. You can get the glass container one time and then just go to the
Dollar Tree.
Yeah.
Dollar Tree has like a huge glass section, and I've literally gotten like little herb jars from there before, and you can get like 12 for $12, and then boom, you got your 12. Okay, I have more than 12 spices, but like, but like if you don't have that many, or you can just start small, you know, and even thrifting, antiquing, there's a lot of options. Well, okay, if you're antiquing, be careful about lead.
Yeah, there's so many things to look out for. Like, you always have to be careful. Like, that's why...
Do your due diligence.
Yeah, you should always do your own research. Do your due diligence.
I think that we should also recycle. Do, like, the reduce, reuse, recycle is totally valid. Like, one, reducing your use of plastic, so limiting how you're buying it, going to the bulk bin store, you know, bringing your own items to like get your like rice, your stuff. Like at our HEB, they have a whole bulk goods section where you can get all your dry goods, and you can bring your own containers, like Kim said, and just weigh them, and like It's really simple. It might take a little bit longer than just like buying a bag of rice, but I think in the long term it'll be worth the sacrifice.
Yeah, and usually the bulk like section is cheaper.
It is. Like I literally got coriander, which is notoriously expensive at the grocery store. I think for like $2 for almost like a bag like this much full of coriander. Yeah, I know. Like I filled up my container 3 times with it.
Yeah, we got paprika, we got garam masala.
Oh, yes, ma'am. Just go to the bulk goods section. They also have unique things. Like, they have some things that I never tried there that it's really opened up my palate and expanded my taste in ways that I wouldn't have tried any other ways because I'm very much a creature of habit. So, reducing, that's one way. And then reusing. If you do have to get plastic, try to reuse it as much as you can. Like, if you get a plastic bag, you can use it as trash can bags. You can use it to pick up your dog's poop if you have one instead of getting like the individual ones. You can use it to tie your hair to let your deep conditioner set, you know? Like, I don't know, that's what I do sometimes. But like, you don't just have to get the bag once and then toss it, you know? Like, you can keep reusing it. And then recycling. If you can recycle your plastics, you cannot recycle everything. If it has food, if it's stained, if it has grease, oil, or any particles left on it, it needs to be clean, dry, and the bottom of it will tell you the type of plastic it is. It'll have like the little recycle symbol and like a number in it. We will put a table here so you can see that. That can tell you what type of recycling you need to do with it. And if it is recyclable, because not all plastic is.
Yeah, that's a very sad reality, is some of it will genuinely just live forever.
Yeah.
To infinity and beyond.
Like PFAS. It's between PFAS and microplastic. They're going to outlive us all. They're going to see the heat death of the sun. But yeah, I think that's it. It's a lot. I think each week we're really diving into these things. And as we're doing more and more research, we're really beginning to understand that like, there's a tough battle ahead to fight for a cleaner future. But thank you guys for tuning in and like sticking out with us as we like bring education and now a new business.
Yeah, and just so you know, our business is going to help tackle some of these issues we have been talking about. We are very environmentally motivated, so we want to help the environment and help the community.
Yeah. So actually, if you have any communities in need, or if you're in need of environmental help or services, please reach out at our business email at saucin.solutions@gmail.com. We are offering consulting services and modeling services. So please get in contact if you need more help or you just need some guidance on how to go forward. We'd love to meet with you.
Yeah, we'd love to have a chat. So thank you for tuning in.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.